So today, I'm going to talk to you about radical innovation. I've made robots before, and so I think that's one of the reasons why I'm here talking under the theme of robots. But the main topic will be radical innovation. So I'd like to start with some visuals to explain my background and where I come from, and also highlight some of these projects. So I'm a mechanical engineer by training. I went to the University of Central Florida, which is in Orlando, for mechanical engineering. And I went to this school specifically because I wanted to work for Disney World. And unfortunately, I did not work for Disney World while I was there. But throughout this mechanical engineering degree, I was pursuing the arts. I made paintings, I did hip hop, I wrote kids' books. And when I graduated, I applied to art schools and I applied to cooking schools. And my advisor was like, you know, you really should apply to MIT. And I did as a joke. And I got in. And that was great. And so I went there for a master's. And for the master's, I was working closely with Hasbro, which is in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. And we were coming up with new types of Nerf and Super Soaker products. That was my master's thesis. And that actually was the result of my master's thesis. It was the Nerf Atom Blaster, which I have a patent on, and it was on the market for about 5 or 6 years. I also did get to work in theme parks. I worked with the Spy Museum and a company called 5 Wits in Boston, and I worked on an elevator simulator, as well as some other special effects for these interactive shows. But again, probably the thing that I'm most well known for on the internet is a robot, and it's a ketchup pooping robot. It's an anthropomorphic ketchup pooping robot. And so I have one of the videos I'll share with you. You could look at the rest of them online. So somehow that made it on Martha Stewart. She had no idea. You could also watch that video online. I continued on. I got a PhD also in mechanical engineering. And I got a PhD because I love teaching. While I was at MIT for 6 years, I was developing this class called Toy Product Design, where the students take their own ideas from concept to functional prototype, working with children and with industry. And they make some really amazing things. So I'll just highlight one of the toy prototypes from last year. This is Chosmo. It's a chocolate gun, and you load chocolate pellets in a hopper, and it works a little bit like a hot glue gun, where there's an auger, and it heats up the chocolate, and it squirts it out. And because it is like a candy melt type material, it cools really fast, so you could actually build 3D structures with chocolate with this pen. And this was all made by students, a team of interdisciplinary students here at the University of Minnesota. In between master's and PhD, I studied industrial design in Holland at TU Delft. And that's when my research took this direction of surprise and humor. And in addition to, I did all the traditional industrial design stuff. And then 4.5 years ago, I took a position here at the University of Minnesota to develop a new product design program from scratch. And last year, I was contracted by Oreo to make another robot. This was an Oreo separating machine for one of their commercials. So I'm going to start by defining some things. These 3 things before I go on. There's a difference between these words. Discovery is finding something that already exists. You uncovered something, you realized something, you named something for the first time. That's discovery. So for example, somebody discovered the element fluorine. This already was in the world. They just were the first person to say, oh my gosh, another element, right? Okay, that's discovery. Invention is making something completely new that hasn't existed before, creating something new. So somebody took fluorine and made Teflon with fluorine. So this was an invention. Now the difference between invention and innovation is a little bit more subtle. Innovation involves taking technology, combining technology, and adding value to society by making some sort of product or service. That's innovation. So Teflon, you don't go to the store and buy a gallon of Teflon. Most people don't do that. But somebody took Teflon and said, hey, what if I put this on the surface of a frying pan and made a nonstick pan? So somebody innovated the frying pan using Teflon. And in innovation, there's radical and incremental. And to illustrate the difference between radical and incremental innovation, I'm going to reference these guys, floppy disks, which most of you have used before. I just don't know how old this audience is. Okay. So you probably don't use them anymore, right? And because in 2000, this thing was invented, the USB, the little flash drive. And this was a radical innovation. It was radical because the thing before it was made obsolete. You don't need those anymore because you have this new thing that does exactly the same thing, but it's less expensive, more efficient, has more storage, whatever. We're in that realm right now. We are using these little zip flash drives, right? Most of you probably have one in your pocket. True? Yeah, okay, right now, yeah. And we're going through little changes in these flash drives. We're making them smaller and able to hold more information. That's an incremental innovation. That's a technological incremental innovation. There's also aesthetic incremental innovations too, right? We're taking things that, making them themed, you plug it in and the dog's tail wags, you could put a story on it. But that's still incremental innovation. Something is happening right now, and we're kind of controlling it. Another radical innovation is gonna happen, and it's gonna make all of that obsolete. What is that? Yeah, probably the cloud, or something related to the cloud. We don't know what that is, what embodiment it takes, or it might not even have an embodiment. It might be a service or an app, I don't know. But something's gonna happen, and it's gonna make all of those things obsolete as well. We, as people, we love incremental innovation. We love it. It's like candy, right? We don't necessarily like radical innovation. Radical innovation usually means changing the way we do something, throwing out stuff, copying all of our information to something else, right? But incremental innovation, that's great. We love it. And the reason why has to do with this theory called Maya. The theory of Maya is most advanced yet acceptable. And what that means is we like things that are typical, things that we can relate to, but also things that are novel in some way. So we like things that we can understand, but are kind of different than what we already know. And in this example, this is a study by Paul Heckert, one of my advisors when I was in Holland, where he asked people to evaluate how typical the car design is and how novel the car design is. And he found that the cars that people preferred were the ones that rated highly on both novelty and typicality. And here's another study that shows almost the same thing. This is with chairs. And it's a slightly different format where they ask people on a scale of typical to unique, rate the chair design. And then they ask them how aesthetically pleasing was the chair. And the chairs that people thought were the most aesthetically pleasing were the ones that were somewhere in the middle, not super unique and not super traditional. So why don't we like radical innovation? Well, sometimes we don't like change, and I would say probably most of the people here are okay with new things and change. You're seeking new insights, but most people in the world don't like change, and they don't like new things because it means learning something new and changing the way you think about something. But another reason why people don't like change is that it breaks habit. You're used to doing something some way, and now there's a thing that makes you do it a completely different way. So this is an example from IDEO, and IDEO was trying to redesign the toothpaste cap because it was getting, this is the old school, like, screw-off one, which they still use, right? The old school one, and it was getting gunked up, and they came up with this idea for like a click-open cap. And they made prototypes of this, and they would give them to people, and they would explain how it worked, but people would still break them by trying to twist them off. And the problem here was not that, oh, there's this new thing, and people realized that, they don't want to change. It's just there's a habit formed. Every time you pick up the tube, you kind of know how you're supposed to open. Maybe you're not paying attention because it's morning and you're sleepy, and you break this thing off, right? So habits take time to break. And this is a toothpaste cap that we're talking about. What if we deal with something really major? Like, for example, the way we communicate with other people, right? So this is the first telephone. And when the first telephone came out, this is Western Union is they were the head of telegraph, right? The monopoly. The telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. The device is inherently of no value to use, right? Okay, this is the first television. And the inventor said, while theoretically and technically television may be feasible, commercially and financially, it is impossible. This is the first computer. And the chairman of IBM said, I think there's a world market for maybe 5 computers. Now, in all these cases, right, it could be fear of change. It could be, I'm going to lose my business, right? I'm going to have to throw everything out right now and buy all new capital and train everyone in a new way of doing something. But it also shows kind of a lack of future thinking about the possibilities of a technology. What does this new technology mean for my company or for the world? And that brings me to toilets. I want to talk a little bit about pooping. So just a show of hands. Who here poops? Oh, okay, only half. So this was actually the robot test. Those of you who didn't raise your hands, you are robots. No, but really, those of you who did not raise your hands, we'll address that later. That's really important. For the rest of you who did raise your hands, this next part relates to you directly, because you use toilets. The toilet was invented by Joseph Brahman in 1775, and this was an invention, not an innovation. He made this thing in probably a basement, and it did not go to market. But in general, the mechanisms, all of the technology is still the same that we're using today. What that means, toilet bowls have not changed in 135 years. There has not been a radical innovation in the way we poop. So the question here, right, is there a better way? There's got to be something on the horizon, I hope, that's going to replace this and make things better, for a few reasons. We want to question the way we're doing stuff, right? Toilet bowls are not environmentally friendly. It's like 2 gallons of water every time you flush the toilet. And that's like efficient toilets. And most of us are not using very efficient toilets. But the more important reason why this doesn't make sense is that we are not meant to be sitting down when we're pooping. That is not how people are supposed to be pooping. We're supposed to be squatting. There's studies on this. When you're sitting down, your colon is kinked. And when you're squatting, the colon is straight. There are studies that have shown that it takes a lot longer if you're sitting down than if you're squatting. And it also requires a lot more strain on your part if you're sitting than if you're squatting. And so people who sit are more likely to develop hemorrhoids. Interesting information. Now, you're probably not going to change, right? For a few reasons. One, you probably have like a few toilets in your house that you're not going to just throw away and buy new ones. Also, it'd be weird if people come over and they say, "What is this?" You're going to be like, "Oh," right? Embarrassment. Like, that's like the half of you who didn't raise your hand when I asked who poops, because I know that all of you actually poop. But you didn't raise your hand because that's weird and it's embarrassing, right? And if you have a new technology in your bathroom that's like, what is this thing? It's kind of weird, right? It's hard for people to change. But I think in the future, we're going to need something that's closer to the squatting toilets of Asia, because that's better for your body and it makes a lot more sense, and they're cleaner and they use less or no water. And so I imagine somewhere in the future there's going to be a radical innovation, and it might look a little bit like that. It might not. We're a lot more stubborn here in the United States, changing. And I'm going to just while we're talking about pooping, I want to switch to toilet paper. Toilet paper is also something that hasn't changed in a very long time. For example, this is Mercedes-Benz over the 100 years. So Mercedes-Benz 100 years ago, Mercedes-Benz today, lots of difference, right? This is toilet paper over 100 years, no change. And toilet paper is not, for all of you here, you probably already know this, toilet paper is not an effective way of cleaning. So if you were in the mud all day, you were doing like a Running Man or whatever, a mudder, and you're covered in mud, you are not going to go and clean yourself off by taking toilet paper and doing this, right? That's not an effective way of cleaning. It's also incredibly wasteful. We go through a lot of paper every year with toilet paper. But if I asked you to change, if I asked you to do something different, it would be very hard. It would be really probably embarrassing for some of you. Even when toilet paper was invented, it took 50 years for this thing to catch on. People were using corn cobs. And along comes this person who invented toilet paper, and they said, "Weird. Why would I use that? I've got this, right? I've got my bucket with the sponge on it, right? That's the way I do it. What, you want me to use toilet paper?" But they did, and they changed to toilet paper, and we don't use like a sponge on a stick anymore, and we don't use corn cobs. But now we're stuck in toilet paper mode, and we're in this toilet paper era, and there's better things out there. There's other countries are using bidets, which is a much more environmentally friendly and hygienic way of cleaning yourself. And we're just slowly being comfortable with that here in the United States. If people from other countries are like, "You use toilet paper? That's gross." And here we're like, "You use a bidet? That's gross," right? But they're right. Okay. So what hopefully, I want people 150 years from now to say, "Can you believe in the United States, only 50 years ago, people were using toilet paper? Can you believe that?" We do that now, right? We look at images of people and we say, "Can you believe that 70 years ago, people would come to your house with a block of ice, and that's your refrigerator, they would put a block of ice on your wall and then leave? Or can you believe you would have to go and wash your clothes like this? Can you believe that, right? Or they gave you cocaine as toothache medicine or heroin as cough medicine? Can you believe that? That was like 100 years ago that we were doing that. And even this was toothbrush. That was the toothbrush. And right now we're looking at that and we're saying, "Oh my gosh, can you believe people believe they put that in their mouth? They use that, right? Now that we have these modern toothbrushes, these are so modern, why would they use that?" So in the future, our children, probably our children and our children's children, they're going to say, can you believe people use toothbrushes? Can you believe they had this thing with bristles on it that they put in their mouth and they scrubbed around, and then they put it on the sink in their bathroom next to their sitting toilet with the toilet paper, and it would get aerated with poo. And then later that day, without sterilizing it, they took it back out of the thing and they put it back in their mouth. And they did this with it. And then they left it there overnight. Can you believe people use toothbrushes? That's crazy. But right now that's normal, right? That's what we're all doing. Every one of us, most of us do that. Although this talk was really early, right? So some of us probably missed that routine. But the same thing about this, right? So there were people that were walking around and were like, check out my new phone. This is awesome. I got the first cell phone, right? And then we look at that now, and we're like, oh my gosh, can you believe people thought that was cool? Can you believe people actually carried that thing around with them? That's like a suitcase, right? And that's what people are going to say about our iPhone. They're going to say, where's my phone? They're going to say, can you believe people put all of their information on this thing, and then when they had to make a call, they had to like take this thing out and they had to like type in numbers, and they had to hold this thing up to their ear and say hello, and then they had to look for directions, and people were driving with this thing like this. And all of that seems normal right now, but in 50 years, this is going to be crazy. They're going to think that we're nuts, right? I want to step back and put all of this in perspective. I want to step back really far to the scale of existence of the world. So if we look at the history of Earth as a calendar year, all of Earth, the time when Earth was formed and now, as a calendar. Whoa, I just lost my balance there. Yeah, water. Okay, good. Water bottles, right? Can you believe they threw this out after, right? Can you believe they had 4 cables going into a computer to project something on the screen? There's 4 cables coming out of my laptop right now. In 50 years, they're going to look at this, they're going to say, what was going on? Like, you had to like run all these wires to this thing over here, which then had wires going through. Okay. But enough of that. Going back to the calendar year, right? If all of the Earth was 12 months, bacteria emerged in March. That's the first time bacteria came about. And humans, when did humans come about? December 31st, the last day of the year, at 11:45 p.m. That's when humans came about. In the grand scheme of things, humans are very young. The Earth is much older than we are. We've only been around for 15 minutes of the Earth's existence. Let's zoom in. Let's zoom in very closely to the last second of Earth's existence. And that's 150 years. So this is the last 150 years of Earth's existence. And about 120 years ago, the light bulb was invented. 120 years ago, the light bulb was invented. And that was about the same time when electricity was going to people's houses. So 100 years ago, people did not have electricity in their home. They didn't have light bulbs. About 105 years ago, the automobile was invented for the first time. We were using horses and carriages. About 50 years ago, man walked on the moon. 40-something years ago, the internet was invented. And then about 7-8 years ago, the iPhone came out. Now, why I'm showing you this, just to put things in perspective here. In 100 years, that's like almost a person's lifetime. In one lifetime, we went from not having electricity in houses, not knowing what a light bulb was, to having the internet. That is an incredible leap. And if we think forward, if we think, okay, 100 years from now, what is going to be there that people are going to say, can you believe 100 years ago they didn't have the internet? We're saying that right now. Can you believe 40 years ago we didn't have the internet, right? But something amazing is going to be in this future that's going to make everything we're doing now look totally dated. And there's going to be a lot of radical ideas. A lot of radical ideas. And you want to remember that these radical ideas that emerge in some day from now, they will be commonplace. They will be everyday objects. Like this, 50 years ago, this was magic. People, if I did something like this and I could change slides with this, do you know what that's called? This is a magic wand, right? This is like Harry Potter stuff. Like 50, 100 years ago, I could change my slides like this. I could turn the lights off in my house like that. They're like, you're a wizard, Harry. You're a wizard, Barry. But, so that's going to make everything we're doing right now look like sticks and stones. And I'm going to end with some robots, because I thought we should have more robots. So 60 years ago, the Jetsons had, Rosie was on the Jetsons, and Rosie the robot, this was radical, right? There's a robot that goes around the house and cleans up after the Jetsons. She cleans the floor, and right now, that's real. That is a real thing that is on the market that a lot of people are buying. Even when iRobot came out with the Roomba, people were like, that's crazy. Who's going to buy that thing? And a lot of people are. Wallace invented the mechanical mechanical trousers about 20-something years ago. And when that came out, that was hilarious, right? The pants that walk you, right? But that's actually what the military is using now to walk soldiers around the field. Things that we think are radical at first or wild ideas will be commonplace things in the future. And I want to just end by talking about this program I'm developing at the University of Minnesota. Oh, sorry. Ideas like this are radical, right? And these are now commonplace things. Okay, University of Minnesota. I'm developing an innovation center, and I'm also developing a new major. And I'm calling it a Da Vinci degree. And it really it blends the engineering with industrial design, with business and anthropology. And we want to create people who are future thinkers, who are creating future objects and services. And I'm hoping we launch this within a year. So look for that.